Have you seen what they've done to your song?
Pastor Shirley Caesar has been the golden voice of gospel, a woman whose songs could lift the weary, strengthen the broken, and remind millions that faith can survive anything. Known around the world as the First Lady of Gospel, her career has inspired generations. But beneath the radiant smile and powerful stage presence lies a story of heartbreak, loneliness, and unimaginable pain that even her strongest prayers couldn't always silence. Shirley's life began in hardship. Born into a large family in North Carolina where poverty was a daily battle. Yet from the very start, her voice carried something divine, a sound that seemed to touch heaven itself. It took her from the dusty roads of Durham to the world's biggest stages, winning Grammys and transforming lives through her ministry. But what the world didn't see were the moments of grief behind the glory. She faced devastating losses, including the death of her parents and later her beloved husband. She endured betrayal, financial struggle, and deep loneliness, all while keeping her faith strong and her voice lifted toward heaven. Every song she sang was a message of hope, even when her own heart was breaking. This is not just the story of a gospel singer. It's the story of a woman who carried the weight of the world in her songs, who turned tragedy into testimony, and who proved that even in the darkest valleys, faith still sings. This is the heartbreaking yet deeply inspiring story of Pastor Shirley Caesar. Before Shirley Caesar became a gospel legend, she was simply a young girl from Durham, North Carolina, whose voice carried more power than her small frame could ever suggest. Born on October 13, 1938, into a humble family, Shirley was one of 13 children. Life in the Caesar household wasn't easy. Her parents struggled to make ends meet, and the Great Depression had left scars on every working family in the South. But amid the hardship, there was always music and faith. Her father, James Caesar, was a well-known gospel singer in their local community. He led a group called the Just Come Four, and his passion for gospel music ignited something in Shirley that would never fade. Sadly, when she was just 12 years old, James passed away. That loss shattered her young heart, but it also gave her purpose. She made a promise to continue his legacy through song, and that vow would shape the rest of her life. By her teenage years, Shirley was singing in local churches, astonishing congregations with her voice, pure, fiery, and filled with soul. Her early performances caught the attention of gospel groups across the region, and soon she joined the Caravans, one of the most respected gospel ensembles of the 1950s. Traveling with them wasn't glamorous: long bus rides, small churches, and endless nights away from home. But it gave Shirley the training she needed to become unstoppable. Her time with the Caravans taught her discipline, performance, and the power of ministry through music. People didn't just hear Shirley Caesar sing, they felt her. Every note she sang seemed to shake the walls and stir hearts. It wasn't about fame. It was about faith. She believed her voice was her calling, a divine gift meant to heal others. As gospel music began to spread beyond church walls, Shirley's career soared. Her powerful performances on songs like I Remember Mama and Hold My Mule made her a household name. Audiences across America were captivated by her unmatched stage presence. She wasn't just a singer, she was a preacher in song, someone who could make even the hardest hearts weep with conviction. But as her fame grew, so did the weight on her shoulders. Behind every powerful performance, Shirley was still the little girl who had lost her father, still trying to sing away the pain that never fully healed. And though her music touched millions, she often returned to an empty home after the applause faded. Shirley's journey through the gospel world wasn't just about triumph. It was about endurance. She broke barriers as a black woman in a male-dominated industry, fought against exploitation, and demanded respect for gospel as an art form equal to any other genre. Through it all, her faith never wavered. She credited every success to God, saying, "I'm just a vessel. He's the one singing through me." By the 1970s and 1980s, Shirley Caesar had become a global figure. She won her first Grammy Award in 1971 and went on to earn over a dozen more, along with countless honors. Yet while the world celebrated her as the Queen of Gospel, she carried deep personal sorrow that fame couldn't erase. The woman who made millions smile and cry through her songs was still grieving her past and facing new losses in silence. For Shirley, music was her therapy, her way of surviving the storms that would come again and again. She had touched heaven with her voice, but the pain she carried on earth was only beginning to unfold. As Shirley Caesar's career reached extraordinary heights, her life behind the microphone was marked by profound loneliness. Fame had brought her the world's admiration, but it couldn't fill the quiet moments between tours or the emptiness left by those she loved most. For Shirley, the stage was where she found purpose, but home was where she faced her greatest battles. In 1983, Shirley married Bishop Harold Dover Williams, a respected pastor and fellow gospel minister. To her, he wasn't just a husband. He was a spiritual partner, someone who shared her passion for faith and service. Together, they founded Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church in Raleigh, North Carolina. Their ministry grew rapidly, drawing worshipers from across the country. Many called them the royal couple of gospel. For years, they worked hand in hand, preaching, singing, and leading their congregation. Their love story became a beacon of hope in the gospel community. Shirley often said her husband was her biggest supporter, the one who encouraged her to keep traveling and recording even when she wanted to slow down. But life, as it often does, had other plans. In 2014, after more than 3 decades of marriage, Bishop Williams passed away. The loss was devastating. Shirley had lost her spiritual anchor, the man who had prayed with her before every performance, who had sat in the front pew beaming with pride as she sang to packed arenas. She said later in an interview, "When you lose your partner in ministry and in life, it leaves a silence that no song can fill." In the months that followed, Shirley retreated from public life. She kept her pain private, attending church but rarely performing. Friends and fellow artists reached out, but she preferred solitude. Those close to her said she spent hours praying and reflecting, seeking strength in Scripture. To many, it was heartbreaking to see the once energetic woman who could light up any stage now, quietly sitting in the shadows of grief. But Shirley's faith, the same faith she had preached her entire life, refused to let her stay down. She began to channel her sorrow into ministry. She often spoke to her congregation about endurance, about how faith doesn't remove pain but helps you walk through it. Her sermons grew even more emotional, filled with stories of loss, love, and hope. Still, the pain didn't end there. Over the following years, Shirley faced more personal heartbreak. She lost several close family members, including her brother Solomon Caesar, the last of her siblings. Then came the passing of her longtime music director and dear friend, Michael Mathis, a man who had stood by her side for over 40 years, composing and arranging much of her music. His sudden death in 2023 left her shaken. She called it one of the hardest losses of my life, saying that performing without him felt like singing without my right hand. Those who attended his memorial, said Shirley, wept openly. A rare moment for a woman known for her composure and strength. And then came the rumors, cruel and false. Reports began spreading online that Shirley Caesar was battling cancer, or that she had died. Social media exploded with confusion, grief, and speculation. But Shirley, ever resilient, addressed the rumors herself. In a short video, she smiled and said, "I must be a living dead person, because I'm alive and well." It was a moment that reminded the world that she was still here, still strong, still faithful. Through every loss and every lie, Shirley Caesar held on to her purpose. Her heart had been broken time and again, but she refused to let grief silence her song. Even as her eyes grew weary with age, her spirit remained unshaken, a living testimony to the power of faith through heartbreak. For most people, grief would have been enough to stop everything, the singing, the traveling, even the preaching. But for Shirley Caesar, pain became fuel for purpose. Her faith was not just a belief system. It was the foundation of her survival. Every tragedy she endured seemed to deepen her spiritual roots, making her even more powerful when she spoke or sang about God's strength in the middle of suffering. In her sermons and concerts, Shirley began to share her journey more openly. She often told audiences that faith wasn't about avoiding pain, it was about trusting God in the middle of it. "If I never had a problem," she once said, "I wouldn't know that God could solve them." Her voice would tremble when she said those words, not from weakness, but from the weight of experience. Even in her 80s, Shirley continued to preach weekly at Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church. Her messages became more personal. Stories of nights spent crying out to God, of loneliness, and of miracles that came just in time. She no longer performed for applause. She ministered for healing. "Every song I sing now," she told her congregation, "is my prayer to God." But that didn't mean the world always treated her kindly. The internet era brought new challenges for older public figures like Shirley. False stories about her death or illness went viral several times, causing pain not only to her but to her family and fans. For a woman who had dedicated her entire life to bringing hope, it was cruel to see her legacy twisted by baseless rumors. Yet she refused to respond with anger. Instead, she laughed, softly, humbly, and said in one video, "I thank God I'm still here. Don't bury me before my time." That moment went viral for all the right reasons, with fans celebrating her humor and resilience. It reminded everyone that even when faced with cruelty, Shirley Caesar's spirit remained unbreakable. Her enduring faith also shaped how she handled aging. At over 80 years old, Shirley still preaches with the energy of a woman half her age. She travels when she can, performs at special events, and mentors young gospel artists who see her as a living example of faith in action. Her mission has shifted from fame to legacy. She wants to make sure the next generation understands the spiritual foundation behind her music. "Gospel is not entertainment," she often says. "It's ministry. It's about saving souls, not selling songs." Those words carry a weight that only someone like Shirley Caesar can deliver, someone who has lived the very truth she preaches. But despite her unwavering strength, Shirley has admitted that she still faces moments of deep sorrow. Losing her husband, siblings, and friends left holes that even her faith cannot completely fill. "Sometimes I sing to remind myself that I'm still here for a reason," she confessed in one interview. "The Lord must have more work for me to do." And perhaps that's what keeps her going. The sense that her story isn't over yet. Even as time takes its toll and her voice grows softer, her heart still burns with purpose. When she steps on stage today, it's not just to perform, it's to testify. Her songs are not just melodies. They are living proof that even when everything around you falls apart, faith can still hold you together. Through the fire of loss, lies, and loneliness, Pastor Shirley Caesar has shown that true faith isn't about avoiding the flames. It's about walking through them and coming out stronger on the other side. As the years have passed, Pastor Shirley Caesar's legacy has transformed into something far greater than music alone. She is not only one of the most decorated gospel artists in history, with over a dozen Grammy Awards, 18 Dove Awards, and countless honors, but also a spiritual mother to generations of believers who have drawn strength from her songs and her story. When people speak of Shirley Caesar today, they don't just mention her hits like No Charge or Hold My Mule. They talk about the way her voice reached into the depths of the human spirit, about how she could take a simple lyric and make it sound like a prayer whispered from heaven. Every performance was more than entertainment. It was a sacred exchange between her soul and the audience. But behind the applause and accolades lies a truth that defines Shirley's enduring power. She turned pain into purpose. She never hid from her struggles or pretended that faith made life easy. Instead, she showed that even the most faithful hearts can break, and that healing comes from using that brokenness to help others. That is what separates her from so many others in her field. Even now, well into her 80s, Shirley continues to serve her community in Raleigh, North Carolina. At Mount Calvary Word of Faith Church, the ministry she and her late husband built together, she remains a guiding light. Her presence fills the sanctuary with warmth, and her sermons, though gentler now, still carry the same passion and fire that defined her youth. Those who visit her church often describe the experience as life-changing, not because of spectacle or grandeur, but because of the sincerity in her words. Yet, her journey hasn't been without sadness. The loss of nearly everyone close to her has left her with quiet days that can feel unbearably long. The woman who once performed before thousands now spends much of her time reflecting, writing, and praying. She has said, "Sometimes I sit and talk to God like He's sitting right next to me. I tell Him I'm tired, but I still thank Him for keeping me." For Shirley, legacy isn't measured by fame or money. It's measured by the number of souls she's touched. And that number, by any standard, is beyond counting. From small-town churches to massive arenas, her message has always been the same. God is real, and faith still works. Her influence stretches far beyond gospel music. Artists across genres, from Aretha Franklin to Whitney Houston and Yolanda Adams, have spoken about how Shirley Caesar inspired them. Her storytelling style, emotional depth, and raw authenticity changed what gospel could be. She brought church music to the mainstream without ever compromising her message. Even as the digital age has made her a target of hoaxes and false rumors, Shirley has remained unbothered. She sees it all as a sign of how relevant she still is. "If they're still talking about me," she once joked, "then the work isn't finished yet." Her humor, grace, and humility continue to endear her to fans worldwide. The tragedy of Pastor Shirley Caesar's life lies not in her suffering, but in how much she has had to endure to share her light. Yet it's precisely that suffering that made her who she is. The strength in her voice, the fire in her sermons, and the compassion in her heart all come from walking through storms most people could never imagine. As she often says at the end of her services, "I may be getting older, but I'm still in His hands." Those words have become her anthem, a declaration of faith from a woman who has given her life to lifting others. And so, as Pastor Shirley Caesar looks back on more than 7 decades of ministry, she does so with tears in her eyes and gratitude in her heart. Her voice may one day fade, but her message of love, resilience, and unshakable faith will echo forever.